Welcome to another deep dive. Today we are going on a journey through the fascinating world of your brain.
A journey through the brain, huh?
Yes, we'll be exploring how it works, how it changes over time, and what you can do to keep it healthy.
Sounds pretty comprehensive.
It is. And get this, we might even uncover a few secrets about this amazing gray matter that makes you, well,
You. I love a good secret. Where should we start? What are the fundamental components of the brain?
that's a good question. Where do you think we should start?
Well, imagine a bustling city
Okay, I'm picturing it. Lots of hustle and bustle.
with millions of tiny interconnected pathways. That's kind of like your brain. The fundamental units of this complex network are neurons, specialized cells that transmit information throughout your body.
So neurons are like those tiny electrical wires we hear about, sending messages back and forth.
Exactly. And these messages aren't random bursts of electricity. They travel through very specific pathways, kind of like those information highways you mentioned earlier. We call these pathways white matter tracks. They're made up of bundles of nerve fibers that connect different areas of the brain.
I'm picturing those fiber optic cables that carry internet data, except this is happening inside our heads.
That's a great analogy. These white matter tracks allow different regions of the brain to communicate with each other, enabling us to think, feel, and act in a coordinated way.
That makes a lot of sense. And what about those other cells we hear about, the glial cells? Are they just there for support, or do they play a more active role?
Glial cells were once thought of as mere support staff, but research is revealing that they're much more dynamic than we initially realized. They provide insulation for neurons, help regulate the chemical environment of the brain, and even play a role in immune defense.
It seems like every time we learn something new about the brain, we realize there's so much more to discover. So we've got these billions of neurons communicating through these intricate networks. But how is the brain organized? Are there different departments, so to speak?
Absolutely. The brain can be divided into several distinct regions, each specialized for different functions. Let's start with the cortex, the outermost layer of the brain. You can think of the cortex as the brain's CEO, responsible for higher-level thinking, planning, and decision-making.
So that's where all our brilliant ideas come from.
Not quite. Creativity is a complex process that involves multiple brain regions working together. But the cortex plays a key role in those aha moments of insight and innovation.
Okay, so we've got the CEO. What other key players are there in this brain organization?
Well, we've got the cerebellum, located at the back of the brain. This region is all about coordination and movement. It helps us maintain balance, learn new motor skills, and even plays a role in some cognitive functions.
So the cerebellum is like the brain's dancer, ensuring our movements are smooth and graceful.
Exactly. And then there's the limbic system, a collection of structures deep within the brain that play a crucial role in emotions, motivation, and memory.
This sounds like the emotional control center, the part of the brain that makes us laugh, cry, and feel those butterflies in our stomach.
Precisely. The limbic system is where we process feelings like fear, joy, and love. It also plays a key role in forming memories, especially those with strong emotional significance.
So these different regions of the brain are constantly communicating and working together, but they each have their own area of expertise.
That's right. And this intricate interplay of brain regions is what allows us to experience the world in all its richness and complexity.
Now, I've heard that the brain isn't static, that it's constantly changing and adapting throughout life. Is this true?
Absolutely. One of the most fascinating discoveries in neuroscience is the concept of brain plasticity. This refers to the brain's remarkable ability to rewire itself in response to experience.
So our brains aren't just fixed entities. They're actually being shaped by what we do, what we learn, even what we think.
Precisely. Think of your brain as a muscle that gets stronger with exercise. The more you challenge it with new learning, new experiences, the more robust and adaptable it becomes.
So every time we learn a new skill, like playing a musical instrument or speaking a new language, we're actually changing the physical structure of our brains.
Exactly. Studies have shown that learning a new language can actually increase the density of gray matter, which is where most of the brain's neurons are located.
That's incredible. It's like our brains are constantly remodeling and upgrading themselves based on what we demand of them.
And this plasticity isn't limited to learning new skills. It also plays a role in recovery from brain injury. After a stroke, for example, the brain can often rewire itself, finding new pathways to perform functions that were lost due to damage.
So even in the face of adversity, the brain has this incredible ability to adapt and compensate.
That's right. And this adaptability is particularly pronounced during childhood, when the brain is still developing and forming new connections at an astonishing rate.
So early experiences must be crucial for shaping the brain's development.
Absolutely. The environment we're exposed to in early childhood plays a huge role in shaping the brain's architecture, influencing everything from our language skills to our emotional regulation.
But what about as we age? Does this plasticity diminish over time?
While it's true that brain plasticity is most pronounced during childhood, the good news is that the brain retains its ability to change and adapt throughout life.
So it's never too late to learn new things, challenge ourselves, and keep our brains sharp.
Exactly. And the more we challenge our brains throughout life, the more we build up what's known as cognitive reserve.
Cognitive reserve, is that like having extra brain power in the bank?
That's a great way to think about it. Cognitive reserve refers to the brain's ability to withstand damage and age-related decline. It's like building a buffer that protects your brain from the effects of aging and disease.
So if we keep our brains active and engaged, we're essentially investing in our future cognitive health.
Precisely. And this reserve is built up through a variety of activities, from education and learning new skills to staying socially active and engaging in mentally stimulating hobbies.
It sounds like we have a lot more control over our brain health than we might realize.
Absolutely. And as we delve deeper into our deep dive, we'll explore specific strategies you can incorporate into your life to boost your cognitive reserve and maintain brain health.
This is already so fascinating. I can't wait to learn more about what we can do to keep our brains healthy and thriving. But before we get into that, I'm curious about the different types of brain damage that can occur. What causes these issues, and how do they affect cognitive function?
Well, brain damage can result from a variety of factors, including stroke, traumatic brain injury, tumors, and neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's disease.
And these different types of damage must have very different effects, depending on which areas of the brain are affected.
Exactly. The brain is incredibly complex, and damage to different regions can lead to specific cognitive and behavioral impairments. For example, damage to the language centers of the brain can lead to difficulty speaking or understanding speech, while damage to the frontal lobes can affect planning, decision-making, and impulse control.
So understanding how these different brain regions function is crucial for understanding the potential consequences of damage.
Precisely. And that's why neurologists often use a variety of tests, including brain imaging and cognitive assessments, to pinpoint the location and extent of brain damage and develop targeted treatment plans.
This is all so fascinating, but I have to admit it's also a little bit daunting to think about the potential for brain damage. Is there anything we can do to protect our brains from these risks?
Well, while we can't control all the factors that contribute to brain damage, such as genetics or accidents, there are steps we can take to reduce our risk and promote brain health.
So it's not all doom and gloom. There are things we can do to tip the scales in our favor.
Absolutely. And one of the most powerful things you can do for your brain is to engage in regular physical exercise.
Exercise. I thought that was good for our hearts and muscles.
Yeah.
But what does it have to do with brain health?
It turns out that exercise is like a miracle drug for the brain. Studies have shown that regular physical activity can increase blood flow to the brain, stimulate the growth of new brain cells, and even enhance the connections between neurons.
So lacing up those sneakers and hitting the gym isn't just about looking good on the outside. It's about keeping our brains healthy on the inside.
Exactly. And it's not just about intense workouts. Even moderate exercise like brisk walking or dancing can have significant benefits.
That's encouraging. It makes brain health feel a little more achievable, knowing that even small changes to our daily routine can make a difference. So what else can we do besides exercise?
Another crucial factor is cognitive stimulation, challenging your brain with new learning, puzzles, games, and creative activities. Remember that concept of cognitive reserve we talked about? This is one of the best ways to build it up.
So it's not just about physical fitness, it's about mental fitness as well.
Precisely. Just like our bodies need regular exercise to stay strong and healthy, our brains need regular mental workouts to maintain their cognitive edge. And these workouts don't have to be boring or tedious. Pick activities that you enjoy and that challenge you in new ways.
I'm already thinking about all the new hobbies I want to try. But before I get carried away, I'm curious to learn more about the specific ways that exercise and cognitive stimulation actually benefit the brain. What's going on at the cellular level that makes these activities so beneficial?
That's a great question. Let's delve a bit deeper into the mechanisms behind these brain-boosting benefits. When you exercise, your body releases a cascade of beneficial molecules. Some of these directly impact the brain. For example, exercise increases levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
Brain-derived neurotrophic factor. What a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. We call it BDNF for short.
Oh, okay. So what does this BDNF actually do?
It's like fertilizer for your brain cells.
Fertilizer. So BDNF helps those brain cells grow and thrive.
Exactly. BDNF promotes the growth of new neurons, particularly in a region called the hippocampus.
Oh, and what's the hippocampus?
It's essential for learning and memory. BDNF also strengthens the connections between neurons. This makes those neural networks more robust and efficient.
So exercise really does make you smarter. But what about cognitive stimulation? How does challenging our brains with puzzles and new learning actually change the physical structure of the brain?
Imagine a path in a forest. The more you walk that path, the more defined and well-trodden it becomes.
Right. So you're saying,
Well, it's similar in the brain. The more we activate specific neural pathways, the stronger those connections become. This is synaptic plasticity.
so by engaging in mentally stimulating activities, we're essentially strengthening those neural pathways, making it easier for information to travel through the brain.
Exactly. And the strengthening involves a complex interplay of cellular and molecular changes. New synapses can form, existing synapses can become more efficient, and the myelin sheath can thicken.
Okay, so back up for a second. What's the myelin sheath again?
The myelin sheath. It acts as insulation around nerve fibers, allowing for faster signal transmission.
Gotcha. So this is incredible. It's amazing to think that something as simple as doing a crossword puzzle could be physically changing our brains for the better.
It is pretty amazing, and the benefits extend far beyond simply improving our cognitive skills. Studies have shown that engaging in mentally stimulating activities throughout life is associated with a lower risk of cognitive decline and dementia.
So we're not just sharpening our minds in the present, we're potentially protecting our brains for the future.
Precisely. You know, I want to talk about something that's often misunderstood, the concept of brain and cognitive reserve. People often think they're the same, but they're actually distinct concepts.
I'll admit, I'm not sure I know the difference. Can you break it down for us?
Sure, brain reserve refers to the physical characteristics of the brain, things like its size, volume, and the number of neurons. It's essentially the hardware of the brain.
So are you saying some people are just born with more brain power?
Not quite. It's not that simple, but genetics certainly plays a role in determining brain size and structure. However, brain reserve isn't the whole story. That's where cognitive reserve comes in.
Okay, so cognitive reserve is more about how we use the hardware we're given.
Exactly. Cognitive reserve refers to the brain's ability to adapt and compensate in the face of challenges, such as aging or brain damage. Think of it like having backup systems in place that can kick in when needed.
This makes me think of those resilient ecosystems that can bounce back from disturbances. Is it fair to say that a brain with high cognitive reserve is like a resilient ecosystem?
That's a great analogy. A brain with high cognitive reserve is more flexible, adaptable, and able to find alternative pathways when faced with obstacles.
So how do we build up this cognitive reserve? Is it just about doing those brain-boosting activities we discussed earlier?
It's a major factor. Education, lifelong learning, engaging in mentally stimulating hobbies, staying socially connected, these all contribute to building a more resilient brain.
That sounds pretty straightforward. But how does cognitive reserve actually manifest in the brain? Can we see it in brain imaging studies?
Well, that's a fascinating question. And the answer is yes. Research has shown that individuals with higher cognitive reserve often exhibit less brain damage on scans, even when they have the same level of cognitive impairment as someone with lower reserve.
Really? Wow, that's incredible. So their brains have developed workarounds, alternative routes for information to travel, despite the damage.
Exactly. And this highlights the remarkable plasticity and adaptability of the human brain. Even in the face of adversity, it can find ways to adapt and overcome obstacles.
So we're not just talking about hypothetical benefits here. Cognitive reserve has real-world implications for how our brains age and how we cope with challenges.
Absolutely. Let me give you a specific example that illustrates the power of cognitive reserve. This study investigated the relationship between childhood cognitive ability and brain health later in life.
So this gets back to that idea that early experiences can have a lasting impact.
Precisely. And what they found was remarkable. Children who scored higher on cognitive tests at age 11 tended to have a thicker cortex in adulthood.
Wait, hold on. So a thicker cortex is a good thing.
Generally speaking, yes. A thicker cortex is associated with better cognitive function. This study suggests that stimulating your brain early on could have lasting benefits for brain health throughout life.
Well, it's never too early to start investing in your cognitive capital.
I like that, investing in your cognitive capital. And it's never too late either. There was a landmark research project called the 8C-Viz study. It demonstrated that cognitive training can have significant benefits for older adults.
Like what kinds of benefits?
Well, things like improving memory, attention, and processing speed.
That's encouraging. So whether you're a lifelong learner or just starting to think about brain health, there are steps you can take to protect and enhance your cognitive function.
Absolutely. And this brings us to another crucial aspect of brain health, the interplay between genetics and lifestyle factors.
This is where things get really interesting. We're not just talking about predetermined factors, we're talking about choices we can make every day to influence the health and resilience of our brains.
It is a powerful concept. Imagine it like this. Your genes provide a blueprint for your brain, but your lifestyle choices can act as the architect. They can shape and mold that blueprint throughout life.
So even if we inherit genes that might increase our risk for certain conditions, our lifestyle choices can either amplify or mitigate those risks.
Exactly. Research has consistently shown that a brain-healthy lifestyle can help reduce the risk of cognitive decline and dementia. And this is true even in individuals with a genetic predisposition to these conditions.
So it's not just about the hand we're dealt. It's about how we play the cards. What are some of these key lifestyle factors that can make such a difference?
Well, we've already touched on some of them: regular exercise, cognitive stimulation, and social engagement. But let's delve a bit deeper into why these factors are so impactful.
I'm all ears.
Exercise, as we've discussed, is incredibly beneficial for brain health. It increases blood flow to the brain, stimulates neurogenesis, the growth of new brain cells, and enhances synaptic plasticity.
So like we said before, it really is a miracle drug. It's like a multi-pronged attack on cognitive decline.
Exactly. And again, it's not just about hitting the gym. Even moderate exercise, like brisk walking or dancing, can have significant benefits.
What about cognitive stimulation? We've talked about the importance of challenging our brains, but what are some specific activities that can really make a difference?
Reading, learning a new language, playing musical instruments, engaging in strategic games like chess or bridge, even doing crossword puzzles, these are all excellent ways to keep your brain sharp and engaged.
So the key is finding activities that we enjoy and that challenge us in new ways.
Precisely. And don't underestimate the power of social engagement. Staying connected with friends, family, and your community has been linked to a lower risk of cognitive decline and dementia.
I guess it makes sense. Social interaction provides mental stimulation, emotional support, and a sense of purpose, all of which contribute to a healthier brain.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about stress management. Chronic stress can be incredibly damaging to the brain.
What does it do to the brain?
It leads to inflammation, cell death, and even shrinkage of certain brain regions.
So finding healthy ways to cope with stress, like mindfulness, meditation, or spending time in nature, is crucial for protecting our brains.
Exactly. And of course, sleep is essential. During sleep, your brain is busy consolidating memories, clearing out toxins, and preparing for the next day. Chronic sleep deprivation can impair cognitive function, increase stress levels, and even increase the risk of developing dementia later in life.
So aim for those 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep each night.
Exactly. And remember, no single lifestyle factor is a magic bullet. It's the combination of these healthy habits that creates the most powerful impact on brain health.
It's like weaving a tapestry of brain-boosting habits, each thread contributing to the overall strength and beauty of the fabric.
That's a beautiful analogy. Now, let's delve into a fascinating study that illustrates the interplay between genetics and lifestyle factors in brain health.
So this study really highlights how our lifestyle choices can influence our genetic predispositions. It's empowering to know that we have some control over how our genes are expressed. But before we get too carried away with the idea that we can completely rewrite our genetic destinies, I'm curious to learn more about what's happening at the cellular level. How do these lifestyle factors actually influence gene expression?
That's a great question, and it takes us into the fascinating world of epigenetics.
Epigenetics. I've heard the term, but I'm not quite sure what it means.
Think of your genes as a vast library of instructions.
Okay, a library of instructions. Got it.
Each gene contains the code for building specific proteins. These proteins carry out various functions in the body. Epigenetics refers to changes in gene expression.
So whether a gene is turned on or off.
Exactly. And this happens without altering the underlying DNA sequence itself.
So it's not about changing the letters of the genetic code.
No.
It's more about adding or removing chemical tags that control whether a gene is expressed or silenced.
Exactly. These chemical tags act like switches, flipping genes on or off in response to various environmental cues. This includes lifestyle factors.
Can you give me some examples?
Sure, exercise, diet, and even stress can influence epigenetic modifications.
It's almost like having a dimmer switch for our genes, adjusting their expression based on our lifestyle choices.
I like that. A dimmer switch for our genes. That's a great analogy. And this is why lifestyle factors can have such a profound impact on our health, including brain health. They can actually influence how our genes are expressed. This shapes the way our brains develop and function throughout life.
This is all so fascinating, but I have to admit I'm still a little fuzzy on how we actually study these complex brain processes.
Yeah.
What tools do neuroscientists use to peer inside the brain and observe its intricate workings?
We use brain imaging. These technologies have revolutionized our understanding of the brain, allowing us to see its structure, function, and even its chemical activity in unprecedented detail.
So we're not just limited to studying brains after death anymore. We can actually observe the living brain in action.
Precisely. There are a variety of brain imaging techniques, each with its own strengths and limitations. One of the most commonly used is magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI.
Right, yeah.
MRI uses powerful magnets and radio waves to create detailed images of the brain's structure. It can reveal abnormalities,
Like what? What sorts of abnormalities?
things like tumors, strokes, or areas of brain atrophy.
So it's like having an X-ray for the brain, but with much greater detail and resolution.
Precisely. And then there's functional MRI, or fMRI for short.
fMRI. Okay.
This takes MRI a step further. fMRI measures brain activity by detecting changes in blood flow. When a particular area of the brain becomes more active, it requires more blood. fMRI can detect these subtle changes, allowing us to see which brain regions are engaged during specific tasks or mental processes.
So we can actually see which parts of the brain light up when we're thinking, feeling, or remembering.
Exactly. It's a powerful tool for understanding how the brain works in real time. And then there's positron emission tomography.
Positron emission tomography.
We just call it PET. It uses radioactive tracers to measure metabolic activity in the brain. PET scans can reveal areas of abnormal brain activity,
Which is.
those associated with seizures or neurodegenerative diseases.
So we can actually observe the brain's chemical conversations using these imaging techniques. That's amazing.
It is, and these technologies are constantly evolving, becoming more sophisticated and sensitive with each passing year. We're on the verge of an era where we'll be able to see the brain's activity with unprecedented clarity, unlocking even deeper secrets of this remarkable organ.
This is all so exciting, but I also wonder about the ethical implications of these advancements. As we gain the ability to probe the brain in ever greater detail, will we face new challenges in terms of privacy and personal autonomy?
Those are important questions to be asking. It's crucial to consider the ethical implications. Like with any powerful technology, we need to make sure these tools are used responsibly.
Absolutely. Now, shifting gears a bit, I want to talk about one of the most profound mysteries of the human mind: consciousness. How do those billions of neurons firing in our brains give rise to the subjective experience of awareness, of being a self in the world?
You know, that's a question that has fascinated philosophers and scientists for centuries. And while we don't have a definitive answer, neuroscience is making progress in identifying the neural correlates of consciousness.
Neural correlates of consciousness.
These are the patterns of brain activity that seem to be essential for conscious awareness.
So we may not fully understand how consciousness arises, but we're starting to pinpoint the brain regions and networks that seem to be involved.
Exactly. For example, studies have shown that the prefrontal cortex seems to play a crucial role in consciousness.
Oh, and remind me what the prefrontal cortex does again.
It's the part of the brain involved in planning, decision-making, and self-awareness. Damage to the prefrontal cortex can lead to profound alterations in consciousness, like a diminished sense of self or an inability to experience emotions.
Wow, so the prefrontal cortex really is like the CEO of the brain. So while the mystery of consciousness remains, we're at least starting to piece together the puzzle. We're starting to identify the neural building blocks of this essential human experience.
That's a great way to put it. And as our understanding of the brain continues to evolve, we can expect to gain even deeper insights into the nature of consciousness and its relationship to the physical brain.
Now let's shift our focus to another intriguing aspect of the human mind: creativity. What's happening in the brain when we come up with a novel idea, compose a piece of music, or find a creative solution to a problem?
Creativity is often seen as this mysterious and elusive quality. But research is revealing that it's not simply a matter of inspiration striking out of nowhere. It's a complex cognitive process that involves a dynamic interplay of different brain regions and networks.
So there's a neural basis for creativity. It's not just magic.
You got it. It's not magic. Studies have shown that creative individuals often exhibit increased activity in certain brain regions, such as the prefrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex, and the default mode network.
Okay, so lots of parts of the brain. Remind me what those regions do.
Well, the prefrontal cortex, as we discussed earlier, is involved in planning, decision-making, and cognitive flexibility. The anterior cingulate cortex plays a role in monitoring conflict and detecting errors.
Right, right. And the default mode network.
That one's a set of brain regions that become active when we're not focused on a specific task. This allows our minds to wander and make connections between seemingly unrelated ideas. This mind wandering is often where those aha moments of creative insight emerge.
So it's not just about having a big brain or being particularly intelligent. Creativity seems to involve a specific combination of brain regions and networks working together in a synchronized way.
I'd say so. And research suggests that we can actually nurture our creativity
How can we nurture our creativity?
by engaging in activities that stimulate these brain regions.
So, like, what? Give me some examples.
Things like brainstorming, free writing, or simply taking time for quiet reflection and mind wandering.
Hmm, I like that. This has been such an incredible journey, but before we wrap up, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the future of brain research. What are some of the most exciting and promising areas of exploration?
Well, neuroscience is a rapidly evolving field. There are so many exciting avenues of research on the horizon. One area that's particularly promising is the development of new technologies for studying and manipulating brain activity. Optogenetics, for example.
Optogenetics.
This allows us to control the activity of specific neurons using light. This opens up incredible possibilities for understanding how different brain circuits contribute to behavior and cognition.
So we can actually control neurons with light. It's almost like having a remote control for the brain.
Exactly. And then there are brain-computer interface.
Brain-computer interfaces, what are those?
Well, these can record and decode brain activity, allowing us to control external devices with our thoughts. This technology has the potential to revolutionize the lives of individuals with paralysis. It could allow them to regain movement and independence.
Wow, these advancements are truly mind-boggling. But as with any powerful technology, it's crucial to consider the ethical implications. Make sure these tools are used responsibly.
You're absolutely right. We need to engage in thoughtful discussions about the potential benefits and risks of these technologies. Make sure they are used to enhance human well-being and promote a more just and equitable society.
Absolutely. Well, this deep dive has been an incredible journey through the intricate workings of the human brain. We've explored its basic building blocks, its remarkable ability to change and adapt, and the profound impact of lifestyle choices on brain health. We've delved into the mysteries of consciousness and creativity, and we've glimpsed into the exciting future of brain research. It really makes you appreciate the brain's complexity.
It does. It does.
And as we learn more, we gain the power to shape our own cognitive destinies. It's pretty amazing.
It is. It is.
Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive. It's been a real pleasure exploring the wonders of the human brain with you today.
Likewise, always a pleasure.
And for our listeners, remember to keep those brains active and engaged. You have more control over your brain health than you might realize.
Raja?
Until next time.